If your legs were tired, then it's because you've been running through my mind all day.
With Valentine's Day, February is seen by many as the month of love. And what's better to put you in that lovey-dovey mood than a countdown of the best cartoon love stories? Doug and Patty. Doug. First up, we are taking you way back to 1991 and into the mind of a pre-adolescent Doug Funny. When the animated series first premiered on Nickelodeon, it was heralded as a significant point in cartoon history. Doug was totally relatable as he juggled being a son, a middle child of 3, a best friend, an elementary student, bullies and of course, secret crushes. One of Doug's best friends was Patty Mayonnaise, who he also happened to be crushing on hard throughout the show's 2 runs on air. Patty, usually as how these things go, was not aware of this and thus the absence of any true romance. But, I found their relationship dynamic as Doug constantly battled with his great need to confess his love versus his fear of rejection. Aang and Katara, Avatar, The Last Airbender. Beautifully choreographed action, amazing animation, riveting plot, the show had it all. What it also had, which admittedly took a backseat to all the action, hey the world was at war, was a decent romantic element. And while there were numerous romantic relationships during the series, the one between Aang and Katara stood out the most. This was mainly due to the fact this relationship wasn't necessarily expected when Aang was freed from the ice by Katara and Team Avatar began their treacherous journey to save the world. But, the real entertainment came from watching how their relationship blossomed after both grew feelings for each other. Both knew that there was no time to explore them when the world was in peril. If you had watched Avatar, The Legend of Korra, you would have already seen the result after they finally made time. Roxanne and Max, a goofy movie. There is nothing sweeter than puppy love. A Goofy movie is another personal fave from my childhood, so it is no surprise that my next entry on this list focuses on the protagonist and his love interest. This romance started similar to all the usual high school romance. Boy, being an oddball, has a crush on the cute popular girl, do all in his powers to be noticed in his attempts to impress her. The great twist here, on the other hand, Roxanne was also crushing hard on Max and thus, his ridiculous grand adventure that followed served no purpose other than to be thrilling entertainment for us of course. The usual cliché tale of the popular girl finally seeing the good in the lovable loser wasn't needed as she liked him from the very beginning despite his goofy father. Helga and Arnold, hey Arnold. Now, from the sweet and kind, to the aggressive and abrasive. By now, except for perhaps with Aang and Katara, these romance on the list follow a familiar school theme. There is no love quite like your first and, as kids, we lack any real knowledge of how to exactly go about it. So, what do we do when you are a kid and in love? Bully your crush of course. This was the whole dynamic behind Helga and Arnold's early relationship, where in hopes of masking her true feelings, she would regularly prank and bully. Helga went from making fun of Arnold and calling him names like football head one moment to spewing her deep affection for him the next. Heck, her personal shrine of him in her closet ups the ante from a simple crush to the dangerously obsessive. Hey, at least it all paid off in the end, as she finally got her man by the end of the Hey Arnold movie. Ginger and Darren, as told by Ginger. Admit it, while all your friends were talking about the latest episode of Dragon Ball Z, you were secretly thinking about what was going to happen on tonight's episode of As Told by Ginger. Whatever Nickelodeon started with Doug back in 1991 they perfected with this masterpiece. As Told by Ginger was as real as any kid's cartoon got during this time, constantly portraying mature themes that pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable for a kid's show. This takes us to the romance between Ginger and her best friend turned boyfriend Darren. Neighbors since kids, Darren was one of Ginger's most trusted friends as she struggles to find her place in school and even life. Naturally, this deep bond leads to affection as the best friend was now looked at in a different light. However, in a true ugly duckling turned swan fairy tale, Darren dropped his ridiculous headgear and became a heartthrob, catching the eye of all the girls. This didn't stop the two from dating, but, with his newfound popularity, Darren eventually dumped Ginger for the high school cheerleader. To be dumped by your love and your best friend would crush anybody's soul, with Ginger's handling of it all made for the most fascinating period in the series. And don't worry, they eventually made up and had a kid. Looking back at this list, it has come to my realization that Nickelodeon shows dominated. This is not to say love and romance didn't play a huge role in cartoons produced by its competitors, namely Disney and Cartoon Network, but, perhaps the ones found here, were more relatable to the average person. Hence, why comic book cartoons and Disney's Princess in Danger movies were omitted. Thank you for watching, and please be free to comment below about my list or to provide one of your own.